Chapter 20. Where the Cliff Dwellers Fly. Sophia drives north with a growing sense of dread. Working in the cramped space behind her, Lin patches up Redbeard as best she can. They've lowered the back seat so that he can stretch comfortably across the floor there. For 2 hours they travel this way. When Lin can do nothing more for her friend, her attendant, she climbs into the passenger seat and buckles herself. "It is up to him now," she says softly. More and more, Sophia believes Lin Lai to be a creature of two at-war personalities. Most of the time she is fierce and unyielding, a hurricane in human form. Yet deep within the storm, there is an eye, gentle and mild, even serene at times. It's an unsettling combination. When darkness blankets the island, Sophia assumes they will find some place to stop for the night. Lin has other ideas. "Keep driving while you can," she orders. "When you are too tired to go further, I will take over." They reach the West Fjords sometime during the first hours of the night. A ghostly half-moon sails lazily on tufts of high cloud. Its bright, silvery glow creates a grand spectacle among the fjords. Shimmering with a million moonbeams, the deep inlets are like icy fingers, reaching into the surrounding mountains, trying to pull them into the sea. Sophia drives late into the night, until her eyelids no longer cooperate. She pulls over, switches places with Lin, and is asleep in a matter of moments. She awakens hours later. The faint light of early morning surrounds them, as does a bank of fog, so thick she can barely see the hood of the car. Lin is in the driver's seat, arms crossed and fast asleep. Sophia checks on Redbeard. She expects to discover that he died during the night. It comes as a shock when she sees his eyes open and his mouth moving wordlessly. She doesn't need to be a lip reader to know what he wants. After grabbing her water bottle and uncapping it, she pours a few drops into his mouth. He works it around, swallows it, and opens up for more. They continue this way until Redbeard is satisfied. What happened?" he asks. His voice is strained and hoarse. "We made it to the farmhouse, thanks to you," Sophia replies with a grateful grin. "Lin took an arrow, but she's doing all right. When we found you the next day, we thought you were dead. But Lin's been working hard to fix you up." "It doesn't," he stops to take a breath, "feel like I'm fixed." Sophia looks him up and down, then says, "Well, you're still in pretty bad shape, to be honest. You killed so many of those Vikings, or whoever they were. But they got in a few good blows, too." "You are extremely lucky to be alive," Lin comments, awakened by their conversation. "We are as well. We owe that to you." "Just doing my duty, Empress," he whispers, closing his eyes. "My life for yours. That was part of the promise we made, remember?" Lin stares through the windshield. For a moment she keeps silent, then says, "Yes, I remember. You, Mouse, Stoker, Caesar, Q. You have all proven yourselves faithful." The deep disgust rises again in Sophia's breast, like bile up from her stomach. What kind of person would force others to swear that kind of allegiance? Who would elevate her own life so much higher than those of her people? Surely only the greatest monsters of history ever did such a thing. And Lin Lai, despite the mask of gentleness and gratitude she sometimes wears, stands among the worst of those monsters. Sophia is sure of it now. She will never let herself be seduced again. She will never consider the tiniest possibility that anything good could live inside the heart of Lin Lai. "Where are we now?" Redbeard asks. "Stuck in fog, unfortunately," Lin replies. "In the West Fjords. We are on our way to a lighthouse here. I am convinced it is where the immovable has taken the relic." "Good," he whispers. "Good." With that last word trailing on his lips, Redbeard slips back into sleep. Or perhaps a coma. Sophia isn't sure she knows the difference. Time to go, Lin says, turning the key in the ignition. Fog or not, we at least have daylight now. Sophia closes her eyes as they traverse the winding fjords. Only when Lin tells her they have exited the fog does she open them again. As in much of the country, they pass through the tiniest of villages. Most consist of less than a dozen homes and a few other structures, docks, warehouses, garages, and the like. Vibrant green pastures, nestled in deep valleys between the mountains, contain scattered farmhouses and herds of sheep or horses. Morning drags on. The clouds lift higher into the sky but remain just as gray. The travelers pass a sprawling white sand beach, which seems out of place on this island of dark volcanic earth. After the beach, the road turns inland. They wind up a steep bank and over it, descending into another village. Somehow, Sophia knows the trip is at its end. The deciding moment is at hand. She wonders what this immovable will be like. Man or woman? Tall, short, thin, fat? Crazy and violent, like the old guy who attacked Gabriel and almost murdered Sophia? Or wise and gentle, as she imagines the poem's writer might be? Her stomach is queasy and her mouth dry, as she wonders whether she will have to fight again, and perhaps die. They pass an old campground, and the road climbs along a rising cliff face. To the left are green and grassy hills. To the right, a steep drop into the sea. As they ascend the final stretch of hill, a lighthouse rises into view. First the top, then the whole thing. There is a parking lot at the end of the road. As soon as they enter it, Lin whips the car around so that it is facing the direction they just came. For a split second, Sophia wonders whether the Empress of Time has caught a case of cold feet. But when Lin parks the Jimny, Sophia realizes she was simply positioning them for a quick getaway. A dissonant chorus of seabirds fills Sophia's ears when she opens her door. Although they are all different shapes and sizes and species, they enjoy the stiff breeze together. They're free and happy as they soar and cartwheel and dive about the cliff, with neither care nor concern for the showdown about to take place. "Would you mind opening the back hatch?" Redbeard asks, awake again. "I want to hear the birds, smell the breeze." Sophia fulfills the request, and he thanks her. Lin, armed to the teeth with knives and other weaponry, approaches Sophia. "You have a choice," she says. "You may stay here with Redbeard, or you may come with me, wherever this leads." As always, the girl's curiosity, bravery, and sense of adventure outweigh her fears, so she answers, "I'm going with you. You might need me. So might the immovable." Side by side, they approach the lighthouse. It isn't the tall, tube-shaped structure Sophia imagines most lighthouses to be. This one is short and boxy, and has certainly seen better days. Its white paint is chipped and peeling. The walls themselves are cracked and crumbling. One of its window panes is broken, replaced with plywood. The only part of the building that appears to be in good shape is the lantern room itself. The rounded, glass-walled room faces the sea, where for 100 years it warned sailors away from the deadly rocks and cliffs. "Do you really think anyone lives inside that?" Sophia asks as she appraises the shabby structure. "Perhaps," Lin replies, "or perhaps in that village we passed through." The windows in front are too high for either of them to look inside. After walking once around the lighthouse and finding no other windows, Lin opts for the straightforward approach. With her metal-plated gloved fist, she hammers on the door so hard, Sophia thinks she's trying to break it down. "Open up!" Lin yells. "I have come for the relic, and I will not leave until it is mine. So come out of there." Nobody answers. Lin knocks again, but the result is the same. Next, she tries beating down the door. She hammers it with her good shoulder and kicks her heel into the lock, but the door doesn't budge. Maybe they aren't here anymore, suggests Sophia. Or maybe they died. I do not think so, Lin says, pointing at the concrete beneath them. Those muddy footprints are too well defined. They would not last long in a place as wet and windy as this, which means they were made recently. As Lin continues her assault on the door, Sophia meanders to the edge of the cliff. Like in the pamphlet she found at the tourist shop, a puffin sits there, surveying the sea. Even when Sophia is close enough to touch it, the puffin doesn't move. It merely eyes her with a sort of pleasant curiosity. Only when the girl reaches for it does the puffin finally leap from its resting place to sail away on the breeze. From here, Sophia can see that the cliffs stretch for miles southeast of the lighthouse. The further along, the higher they rise, cutting a jagged line between earth and sea. It is along this craggy edge where Sophia spots him, a solitary figure with a bushy beard and a walking stick. And he's walking toward her. Sophia freezes. Should she hide? Try to conceal their presence? No, that would be wasted effort. The man must have noticed her staring at him by now. Yet he doesn't change his pace. He doesn't appear hurried or threatened. He is simply enjoying a leisurely stroll on a pleasant morning. Sophia knows she should alert Lin, yet she does not. There's something about the man that has already earned her trust, though she cannot say why. For several moments she weighs her options. Then, before she realizes what her legs are doing, she starts toward him.
"Good morning,"
he calls cordially to her when Sophia is near enough to hear him. He speaks with a thick Scandinavian accent.
"I wondered if anyone would solve the riddles I left at the North Cape. I was beginning to grow worried I would die with my secrets." With a laugh, he adds, "or that I would have to create another poem."
Now that he is closer, Sophia discerns his features more clearly. He does indeed have a thick beard, more gray than brown. She guesses his age is somewhere between 60 and 70, although he still appears strong and healthy. His sharp eyes are the emerald green of a mountain lake, quick and clear, and they give Sophia the uncomfortable sense that he is reading her heart and mind. "Good morning," she replies. Suddenly aware of how near the cliff she is, Sophia prays she hasn't misjudged the man.
"My name," he says, extending a calloused hand, "is Einar Sturluson."
Tattooed below his wrist is an image of the letter I, just like the old man who almost killed her. "I'm Sophia," she replies. She shakes his gentle hand, but seeing the tattoo has unnerved her. His eyes flick toward the lighthouse, and he says,
"There is much for us to discuss. Perhaps it would be best if we included your friend in our conversation."
Sophia snorts. "She's not my friend. Be careful around her. She's dangerous."
"And until I have the pleasure of knowing you better, I shall assume the same of you,"
Einar replies with a bemused grin. He beckons her forward with an outstretched palm.
"Shall we?"
Lin spies them approaching. She stands tall and undaunted in front of the lighthouse door. One hand she places on the hilt of her longest knife, while the other remains balled up in an angry fist. She scowls at Sophia, and when the girl is close, she yells, "Why didn't you alert me?" "He just wants to talk," Sophia says. "He's not dangerous."
"That is not entirely true," disputes Einar. "I certainly am dangerous to the wrong people, just as a mother bear is dangerous when someone threatens her cubs. But you have no need for your weapons. Not yet, at least."
Lin relaxes her grip on the knife. From his pocket, Einar produces a brass key. He holds it up to prove it isn't a weapon, and with the same grin and glimmer in his eyes says,
"It is tea time, I believe. Care to join me inside?
Without waiting for an answer, he steps past Lin, unlocks the door, and enters the lighthouse. Sophia responds to Lin's angry glare with an innocent shrug, then follows Einar. For something called a lighthouse, it's awfully dark inside. As far as furniture goes, Einar has adopted a minimalist approach. A picnic table sits against the left wall. A gas stove and tea kettle on the tabletop are the only cookware Sophia sees. In the back corner is a small desk, which holds a dozen books, a notebook, and a couple pens. An easy chair and floor lamp occupy the other rear corner. A ladder leads to a rectangular platform some 10 feet above them, where a mattress and blanket serve as Einar's bed.
It isn't much, Einar admits as he ignites the gas stove. But it is home now.
Why did you come here? Sophia asks. Why did you leave the North Cape?
2 reasons, Einar replies. He produces a large water jug from underneath the picnic table. With it, he fills the kettle. First, because this is where I was born and raised. That little village you passed at the bottom of the hill, that was home for me. Even when my family moved to the city, I always considered this home. It is my favorite place in the world. I knew if I was going to be alone for the rest of my life, I wanted to be here.
And the other reason? Lin asks coldly.
Too many people snooping about the North Cape, Einar answers casually. French snoopers at that. I had to leave.
Motioning toward the benches on either side of the picnic table, he says,
Please take a seat. I have waited a long time for visitors.
Sophia sits as directed. Lin doesn't. She narrows her eyes and says, We came for the... Einar cuts her off. There is a dark, disapproving look in his face as he snaps,
I know what you have come for, Lin Lai.
Sophia's jaw drops. She hasn't mentioned Lin's name. Neither did Lin herself. How could he know it already? What Einar says next is so shocking, even Lin must sit when she hears it. Addressing her with a mocking tone of false dignity, he adds,
O Empress of Time,